Hello, everyone, and welcome to our group call this week. If you guys have any questions, I want you to put it in the comments. And if you're new to the group call today, what I do is come on here every week and share a coaching concept. And you guys can ask questions or comment. Today, I'm talking about how to feel better in your life. I think we're all guilty of getting in patterns of doing things, getting in a way of pattern of thinking, even patterns of how you do things every day in your life, like your everyday routines. And sometimes we allow habits to form that aren't what we would choose if we were trying to design our life on purpose. We just kind of get stuck doing something over and over and over, and we don't realize it. And it can get us in situations where we start feeling uncomfortable and unhappy with our lives. And a lot of people end up, going into depression or having other mental health issues because they're just not aware of their own actions and the results they're causing in their lives. So I'm happy that you guys are all here. You're aware and curious about life coaching and interested in changing possibly the way you're thinking or habits that aren't working for you in your life. And I am happy to help you with that. So I'm going to give you 10 steps to feel better. This week, we're only going to cover 5, and next week we will finish with the second 5. It's a lot to go over in one call. So we're just going to do the first 5 today. To feel better, the first thing that I recommend for all of my new clients and every one of you guys that are interested in feeling better in your life is to evaluate your life. In coaching, we use something called a life wheel, but you can do this for yourself. Just think about every area of your life, all of the relationships you have in your life, and all of the areas of your life, like your social well-being, your physical well-being, your mental well-being, your physical surroundings, your home, and your things. I want you to take an assessment of everything in your life, and you can use the life wheel. I will also put that up in my Joy in the Journey group if you want to use the life wheel. This is what I use with my clients, or you can just use your own system. You can just write down all of the things that you have in your life. And what I like to do is ask my clients on a scale of 1 to 10, how would you rate a specific area of your life? So if we were talking about relationships, we would start with the most 5 important relationships in your life. And if you're married, that would be with your spouse, and then possibly, the closest people to you, your parents and your children, and then the next relationships out. And we would evaluate each of those relationships. You could give it a number. I usually tell my clients to just give the first number that comes to mind. And then why did you rate it that way? So if you rated the relationship with your spouse a 5 or 8 or 3, why did you give it that rating? And so that's what I would challenge you to do, is in your personal assessment, think about all the different areas of your life. And I can just pull out one that I use with my clients. So you could talk about or evaluate your relationships, your emotional health, your financial situation, how you feel about your time, how you're managing it, and if you feel like you have enough time or not enough time to accomplish everything you want, your physical health, your career or your business goals, or how you're doing with your career or your business, and your spiritual goals, how you feel about how you're living and fulfilling your spiritual well-being. And that's totally up to you. That's different for every person. But this is just sort of a basic assessment that I use with my clients, sort of an intake before we start coaching, to just see exactly where you rate all of these things in your life. And it's private. You don't have to share it with anyone, but it's a good place to start. is just assess all of the areas of your life and how you feel about each of those areas and where you would like for things to improve. All right. That's where we start off with coaching, is where you want improvement in any of these areas of your life. All right. So first step to feel better is to complete an honest personal assessment. The second step to feel better is to identify the true source of all of your problems. And if you're familiar with my work and with coaching, what I teach is that all of our problems always stem from our thoughts. Our thoughts are what generate our feelings, and our feelings drive our actions, and our actions create the results that we have in our lives. So our thoughts create everything in our lives. So everything that is happening in your life, all of your relationships, all of the situations in your life are the way they are because of the thoughts that you have about them. And if this is a new idea to you, you may want to think about it some more and do some reading and maybe talking with other people in my Facebook group about this and how they have been able to apply it in their lives. But this is really the basis for changing anything you want to change in your life, is to start with identifying your thoughts and directing them to create the feelings that drive the actions that get the results you want in your life. All right. Something that I've talked about before about thoughts is that we believe when we're talking with our friends and family and people in our lives that when we're telling them how we feel about our life or the events in our lives, we feel like we're telling facts. We feel like whatever we say is just the truth of a situation. But many times they're not facts. They're stories that we're telling ourselves about the facts. So the very basic level of starting with coaching is to separate out facts from stories. And there's a whole lot more about this. I've done whole other coaching calls and podcasts, and there's lots more information about how to separate stories and facts. But this is an important place to start, is you have to learn to identify what really is a fact and what really is a story that you are telling yourself and other people about events in your life. Because many times we have very hurtful stories that we believe are true. We believe that they're just the facts of life, and they're not. They're just painful stories that we believe, and we continue believing over and over, and it causes us a lot of pain in our lives, unnecessary pain. So this is what we tackle in coaching, is separating out the facts from the stories that you're telling yourself and peel away stories that you've possibly believed all of your life that are just causing you pain that you don't have to continue believing. You can actually learn and tell yourself and believe new stories about old events, about everything that has happened in your life, about your past. So that's where practicing your intentional thoughts or your mantras, like I talked about last week, comes in handy, because we've all practiced our old thoughts and our old stories so many times that it's a habit, it's a pattern in your brain. And to break that pattern, you have to practice new stories, and you have to do it over and over again, like repeating your mantra. But you can't just say the words without believing it and generating the feelings that come from it. Okay. So it's not as simple as just, I don't like that thought, I'm going to switch it and trade it with another thought. It's not that easy to switch your thought and have it be something that you believe that can actually change your feelings and change your life. It has to be a new thought that you believe and that you live into. So it takes some practice, but it can be done. The truth is, we create our lives mostly in our minds. And if you can learn to control and direct the thoughts that you're having about your life and your everyday experiences and all of your relationships, you can change the experience that you're having in your life. It's so exciting. This is what I love to help my clients with, and I'm excited to share it with you guys. It's like the secret of the universe. And if we only understood it, we can change everything about our lives. So that's number 2, is identify the source of your problems. So after you make an assessment and write out all of the categories in your life and how you feel about all of them, you might recognize that there are several, or maybe one, that you have a lot to write about, or that really is a problem area, a place that you're having a lot of problems, or you're focusing a lot of your time and attention. That's where you would want to start with separating out your thoughts about that problem. Okay, so start with the areas that have the lowest score, if you did the ranking from 1 to 10, or the areas that you're most troubled by, or relationships that you're having trouble with. That would be the perfect place to start, by separating out then about that specific area, separate out the thoughts and the facts about any situation. All right. The third step to feeling better is to practice feeling instead of resisting, avoiding, reacting, or dulling your emotions. It's really fascinating to me that a lot of what we do in our lives is run away or avoid or resist feeling an emotion. Emotions are just sensations in your body that come from your thoughts. I want you to think about that. A feeling or an emotion, it's the same thing, is just a sensation in your body that comes from the thoughts that you're having. So it can't hurt you. Even the most frightening feeling or heavy feelings like grief and despair and disappointment, they all come from thoughts that you're having that create sensations in your body. That's it. You can't die from a feeling. So the worst thing that can happen to you is that you feel a feeling, and you can do that. So another thing that is very important that we work on in life coaching is learning to feel our feelings. And in our world today, many people do almost anything to avoid feeling their feelings. They resist them by suppressing them and pretending that they're not there. They avoid them by distracting themselves with social media and television and just media in general, or reading a book, or many times this is when people turn to substance abuse or pornography abuse. Another thing that people do to avoid feeling is react. And so they just press down their feelings as long as possible. And then when a situation arises, they react and all the emotions come out. And that's when people have anger management issues and explosive road rage and bad situations like that. Many, many people just try to dull their emotions with substances like drugs and alcohol and, over-the-counter stimulants or whatever they need in order to numb themselves so they don't feel their feelings. But the most powerful thing you can do is not be afraid of your feelings, because it's just a sensation in your body. And the worst thing that can happen is you feel it. You sit with it and you feel grief or sadness or disappointment or despair, and you just let it be. If you can learn to do that, you can literally you can do anything you want with your life. If you can learn to be in touch with your feelings and be willing to feel whatever feelings you have without resisting, avoiding, or dulling them or repressing them. Most people make choices in their lives because they're running from their feelings. Many people, many of my clients are dealing with the consequences in their lives because of a failed marriage. And then they ran into another relationship that to feel better immediately. So they didn't have to sit with the discomfort of going through divorce and the feelings that come with that failure. They ran into another relationship and jumped into, something that felt good temporarily, but didn't bring lasting joy or peace, that wasn't really a committed, devoted relationship. And now they're dealing with more grief, more disappointment, because instead of just sitting with those feelings of disappointment from their failed marriage and learning to work with those and learn from those, they ran into another relationship to feel better immediately. And so if you can just learn to sit with your feelings and process them and not make your decisions based on how you're feeling, but use your higher brain to make decisions on what you ultimately want out of your life, you can change every single thing about your life that you want to change. If you can just master this one thing, feeling your feelings, okay? And it takes practice. We, just like everything else, we get in patterns of avoiding our feelings and trying not to feel them. And many of my clients, actually, when I start working with them and we started doing feeling assessments, they're not sure how they feel. They don't even know. I have a list here that I use with my clients that has 500 one-word descriptions of a feeling. And many times they can't even name what they're feeling because they're so out of touch with themselves, or they're so unaware of the feelings that are driving them day to day. So the third thing on the list to feel better is practice feeling your feelings instead of resisting, avoiding, reacting, or dulling. And I would say with the practice, just start being aware of them. This is where I start with a lot of my clients, is just start by paying attention to how you're feeling and put a name on it. Just label the feeling. Okay. And if you guys missed it, I'm going to put this list up later in my Facebook group, Joy in Your Journey, and you'll have it there. And this video is being recorded, and I will link that recording as soon as we get it edited and produced and in the group, so you guys can go back and watch it later. All right, so the third one is practice your feelings. And I would say just start being aware of how you're feeling and putting a label on your feelings, okay? The fourth thing that you need to do to feel better in your life is to become the creator and manager of your thoughts. Okay, like I said in the beginning, our thoughts come up so quickly, and especially if you're not used to paying attention to your thoughts, you might think that you don't have control over them. You might think that they're just automatic and that you can't change them, that's the thoughts that you have are the only ones that you could have about a certain situation. But that's not true. The ultimate goal of life coaching is to become the observer and creator of our thoughts and feelings. And once you learn to connect with yourself and become aware of your thoughts, and you may even want to start by just writing them down. What are you thinking? We call it a thought download, but we encourage people to do it every day. Just free write all the thoughts that you have at any time in the day, once a day. And if you start doing that, you'll notice patterns in what you're thinking. A lot of repetition, actually. Many times we have patterns that are very self-destructive, that are cruel. Probably, if you're honest with yourself and you write down the things you're really thinking, you may notice that the things you say to yourself in your thoughts are things you would never say to another person. Many of my clients struggle with thoughts like, I'm worthless. I keep messing up again and again. I'm never going to figure it out. No one's ever going to love me. No one's ever going to want to be with me. If you are thinking those thoughts over and over and over again, every day, all the time, your mind is listening and you're telling yourself that you're not worthy. And then what you're feeling is unworthy, unlovable. And then those feelings are driving your actions. And so if you can just start to become aware of those thoughts and slowly, one at a time, we can start changing and removing those negative thoughts and replacing them with ones that are soothing and comforting. And like I said a few minutes ago, you can't just take, oh, that's a terrible thought, I'm unlovable, and switch it to something like, I'm wonderful, if you don't believe that. Okay. We work on what we call ladder thoughts. And if you are struggling with the thought, I'm unlovable, then what we would do is get to the reason why you think that thought. And that's something we would work on in coaching. Why that thought was planted in your mind, maybe who said that to you or who made you feel unlovable, and start to peel away the layers of why you believe that. And then we could work on a bridge thought for you that would be like, I'm worthy of love. Maybe someone could love me. Or I am worthy of love. Every human being is worthy of love. Even just that thought. If you replaced I'm unlovable with every human being is worthy of love, and you practice that every day, you would notice a drastic change in how you feel every day and your interactions with other people and everything in your life. If you could just start replacing and removing some of the most negative, damaging thoughts that you have. It's so exciting to see my clients do this in their lives and help them peel away those destructive thoughts that just sneak in. 95% of our thinking is unconscious. So when we learn something, it creates a very weak neuro pathway in our brain. And the more that we repeat it over and over and over, or if we repeat it and add significant emotion to it, it becomes more and more unconscious and effortless. So when you first learn a new thought or a new concept, let's say you're in school and you're learning a new concept, it's fresh and it takes a lot of effort for you to learn it and create that neuro pathway for the first time. And the more you practice it, and especially if you add emotion with it, it gets stuck in there. And then what happens is your higher brain delegates that to a lower brain function, and you don't even have to think about it anymore, like driving home or brushing your teeth or getting dressed every day. Those those pathways are so worn, you can think about a million other things while you're driving home or while you're brushing your teeth or while you're doing, higher brain functions like learning something new. So many of the thoughts that we have that are painful and damaging in our lives, they're unconscious. You're not deliberately aware of them and choosing to think them. They're just happening because you've practiced it for so long. The fourth step to feeling better in your life is becoming the creator and the manager of your thoughts. And that will take a lot of effort in the beginning and practicing going forward for the rest of your life. To become the manager and creator of your thoughts, that means you want to be much more deliberate about the thoughts that you're having and directing those thoughts to generate the feelings that you want, to get the actions that you want, to change the quality of the life that you have. All right, so that is number 4. Okay, number 5 is become emotionally mature by living in emotional adulthood. Now, if you haven't heard, I have a podcast about this. I've talked about this in previous group calls, but I'll explain it briefly here if this is the first time you're hearing this. And if it's not, it's good to hear over and over. A lot of these concepts, they're new. And so it takes some repetition for it to sink in and click in your mind. But in coaching, we call the concept emotional adulthood when you take full responsibility of your emotions. All right. Kids, they tend to be reactive, and we teach them, like, don't hurt someone else's feelings, or did someone hurt your feelings? And as children, they are much more reactive and not necessarily ultimately in control of their emotions. But if you're an adult, you are responsible for your own emotions now. No one else has control over them unless you choose to give them that control. So it's actually good news if you're not aware of that or haven't heard that before. The best news is if no one else can make you feel good or bad, then you can make yourself feel however you want to feel, right? It's your responsibility to manage your own emotions. And the truth is, we really can't control other people as much as we like to think we can, or we try to coerce or manipulate other people in our lives or influence them for good, even. It's ultimate, everyone just gets to choose to do whatever they want as adults. And we get to keep ownership of how we feel about everyone in our lives, our own emotional well-being. We get to keep the credit and responsibility for how we are feeling. All right. And that means if you're not feeling well about a situation, if you're upset about a situation, then it's your job to address that and make yourself feel better if that's what you want to. Now, a concept that I've taught many times before is that we're not supposed to feel happy and wonderful all the time. Our lives are supposed to be a balance of good and bad and positive and negative. It's supposed to be negative. We're supposed to feel negative, have somewhat negative experiences about half the time. So the other half the time, we are going to want to feel good and have good experiences. That means we're having a human experience. So it's okay to have bad days and down days and bad experiences. It's good to understand that and not expect that your life should be better because you're having down days or bad days. That's normal. It's healthy and natural to have a mix of positive and negative, to have a balance of 50-50 emotions. Half the time you should have negative emotion and half the time you should have positive emotion. And if your life isn't balanced like that, then you've got some work to do, but no one else can do it for you. It's your responsibility to manage your emotional well-being. And that's good news, because if you keep the control and the responsibility for feeling good or bad or sad or whatever range of emotions you have, then you ultimately have the control to make it different. And that's great news, because you can do that if you choose. All right, so these are the first 5 steps to feel better in your life, no matter what your situation is, no matter what kind of challenges or experiences you're having in your life, or what place you are in your life. If you're young and starting out, or you feel like you've lived the majority of your life, it doesn't matter. You can apply these principles wherever you are in your life. So we're going to pick up next week with the second 5. I will review these next week, but we're going to pick up from here and start with 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. But the first 5, just to review before we run out of time for today, is start with a completely honest personal assessment about where you are in your life, in every area of your life, and in all of the most important relationships you have. Do an assessment. You can use the number scale, or you can just free write and express how you feel about each of these areas of your life and what you would like to change or be different or better. Okay, so start with an honest personal assessment. First step. Second step, in each area that you're struggling or you're having problems or you want significant improvement, I want you to identify the true source of all of your problems, which is always your thinking. It's never the situation. It's never someone else's fault. It's always what you're thinking about the situation. And if you need help with that, I would love to help you. Come to a free coaching call. A lot of times it's hard to see our own thought errors and to separate out the facts from the stories. So that's what I do in coaching. But second step, identify the true source of all your problems. Figure out your thought errors, when they're happening, how they're happening, and why. Okay. The third step to feel better is practice feeling instead of resisting or avoiding or dulling your emotions. And this can take a lot of practice if you're not used to doing this and you're not even very in touch with how you're feeling and why. This is going to take some practice, but you can do it. So practice feeling. That's number 3. Number 4 is become the manager and creator of your thoughts. It's really exciting when you figure out the thought errors that you're having and that you can change those, that you can actually think things you want to on purpose and feel differently about the problem areas in your life, about yourself, about your health, about your wealth, about your future, about your past. You can literally change the way you feel and what you believe about everything in your life. And if you have had a lot of pain and trauma, or you're dealing with a lot of disappointment and things aren't going how you wanted them to go, this is powerful work. It can really change how you're feeling about your life right now. So number 4 is become the manager and creator of your thoughts. And the 5th step is step into emotional adulthood. Take responsibility for your emotions all the time, every day, all the time. Now that you're an adult, it's your job to manage your emotions. And that's your responsibility now, is to accept that and be an emotionally mature adult and take responsibility for your emotions. Don't blame them on other people. Don't blow up on other people. And if you're walking around with a lot of resentment or disappointment or heavy emotions, then you've got some work to do. Okay, I'll just tell you that. If you're walking around with a lot of heavy emotions that you blame on other people or that you feel like aren't your responsibility, there's a lot of work that you can do in that area. And it's so freeing to be able to let go of some of that heavy emotion, and you become in charge of it. And it's really empowering when you learn to do that. Okay, so for today, we're going to end here. Those are the first 5 steps to how to feel better. Next week, I'm going to pick up and we'll go on to 6 through 10, but I will put this in my Facebook group with the list so you guys can start working on it. And if y'all have any questions or comments about any of this, you can send me an email or put it in the comments and I will respond in the group so that everyone can benefit from your question. And that's all for today. Thanks so much for joining me. And I'm excited to see if you guys practice this and see how it goes for you. All right. I'm hoping y'all are going to take the first 5 steps, maybe before next week, and we can talk about it and see if you're starting to see any change in your life or you want to talk about anything you would like to change. It would be really cool to hear from you guys and see what's happening as you're applying these 5 steps. So thanks so much, y'all. I will see you next week.